All right, take one on upgrading your rear brakes from the regular SN95 5-lug stuff to the Cobra Taurus rear setup. Figured to make a quick video here, kind of go over some part numbers, some costs, and the how-to, because it's not a direct bolt-on, which I found out very quickly. So first thing, I'm running the Cadillac ATS Brembo brakes up front, 13-inch rotor, just like your 0304 Cobra, but it's a 4-piston caliper. So I was way too front biased on the brakes, and I needed to upgrade to a bigger rear setup. So that was one factor on why I did this. The other factor is it's probably the lowest, best bang for your buck budget-wise upgrade. Another factor is it's still the Taurus Cobra calipers in the rear are still a slide bolt setup. These rear ends, these axles have C-clips. Those axles move around a little bit. I think that is the reason why Ford uses that slide bolt setup, so your caliper can move with that rotor. If and when I go to a full-blown aftermarket racing rear brake package, I'm going to have to do C-clip eliminators and 9-inch ends, and I'd like to convert it to a full floating axle, and you know, snowballs, more money, you know how it is. So there was a couple different factors. Another thing, I had rear brake failure at Mid-Ohio. It's not fun. So I said, you know what, it's time to call Mike at Maximum Motorsports, see what he recommends for a rear brake setup, and here we are. He told me you want to go up to a Cobra rear rotor, Cobra pad with a Taurus caliper. Why a Taurus caliper over a Cobra caliper? Because the Taurus piston is larger than the Cobra piston, and obviously larger than the regular SN95 stuff. The SN95 stuff I ran, when I converted the car to 5-lug in 2010, I junkyard pick and pull kind of situation, ran it, it always worked fine. It's great for a street car. The SN95, I mean, we're talking 94 to 99, I believe, maybe 94 to 04. Regular V6 GT, regular, nothing fancy. It's a 38mm piston, and I don't know, 10.5-inch rotor, 10-inch rotor. I wish I had that written down. But so, anyways, moving on. There was a couple factors. What I'm getting at is there's a couple factors on why I went to this rear brake upgrade. So first, I actually called Autozone, asked if they had any 0304 Cobra rotors for the rear. Pretty sure it's the same thing, 94 to 04. Not positive, but so I just asked 03 to 04. Wasn't sure if they made, you know, for the 95 Cobra, the 99 Cobra. I didn't know if, you know, Ford changed anything. I said, hey, do you have any 0304 Cobra rotors at your store? Lady said, yeah, we actually do. They're in stock. Part number on that is 54036. So I went, picked up the rotors. While I was on the phone with her, I said, let me see if they have the Taurus calipers. There's no way. I doubt it. They're not going to have a Taurus caliper in stock, right? Called them up, on the phone with them. I said, you know what, since I got you on the hook, do you have any 2000 Ford Taurus rear brake calipers? She goes, yeah, we actually got them in stock. Couldn't believe it. I said, I'll be right over. Part number on that is 18-B4536. I'm guessing that's left side or right side. And then 18-B4537. Those are your part numbers for that. The Cobra pads I sourced from Road Race 1 because I wanted Raybestos pads, track pads, performance pads to match my front. I'm on an ST41 brake pad up front. I'm also on an ST41 brake pad in the rear. So I wanted to match brake compounds. Then while I was on the phone with Mike at Maximum Motorsports, he told me go to foxbodybrakes.com. You're going to need to change the brackets that bolt on to the ends of the axles on your rear end. He goes, you're going to need the Cobra rear brake brackets for SN95 Axles. So this car, going back to 2010, when I 5-lugged, swapped it, I kept the original 89 rear end, and I put in the SN95 Axles. 28 spline. Obviously, we know they're like 3/4 of an inch wider on each side compared to the Fox. Later on, I upgraded to Mosier 28 spline axles, and I did the ARP extended studs. Apparently Mosier makes a stronger axle than the stock, so whatever. I wanted to go beefier. It's still all 28 spline. I didn't swap over the entire rear end housing because I already had gears and I already had the Ford Racing carbon fiber clutch pack kit. So that's why I left my original 8.8 housing and just put in the SN95 axles. So those are the brackets you're going to need. They're billet aluminum, much lighter. You'll see my post on Instagram. They are, again, foxbodybrakes.com. You're going to go over to bracket kits, and they're Cobra rear brake brackets for SN95 axles. What that allows you to do is that bracket is actually a little longer, and you're going to need that when you bolt the Taurus or Cobra caliper on. Obviously, with a larger rotor, that caliper is going to hang out, you know, an inch or whatever it is out wider. That's why you need that bracket. I'm sure if you guys wanted to save some money, it is steel. You can shave them up, weld them, and make an extension and drill new holes. But this was easy, 250 bucks at my door in a couple days, bolt on and go. People think this is a direct bolt on. This is not a direct bolt on, because since you have to swap those brackets on your axle ends, you need to open up the diff, pull your pin, you know, that bolt, pull that pin out, pull the C-clips out, and pull the axles out. So now you're kind of getting more involved. It's not like a quick, you know, bolt on rear brakes, bleed the brakes and go. So that was fun, realizing that, oh, I can't get these brackets off with the axles in. Not a big deal. A couple simple tools. Again, not a huge deal. I also had to shorten. So there's 2 3/4 of an inch bolts that go through your brackets into the brake caliper brackets to mount the caliper on the rotor. I found out that the stock 3/4 inch bolts were too long, and it was actually, when I tightened everything down, it was touching the rotor. So I had to just took my die grinder and I cut off, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch. So that was another little thing I had to do. I had to shorten those 3/4 inch bolts from hitting the rotors. And then I didn't even realize it, but I had the anti-moan brackets on my rear end, and I can no longer use those because with that new axle bracket, since it is longer, those bolt holes are not going to line up. So I pulled those off. So again, there's a couple things, you know, we have to swap out the brackets on the axle tubes. You got to, me personally, I had to shorten the 3/4 of an inch bolts. You got to pull the axles out, and then I couldn't use my anti-moan brackets. So I don't know, you know, it depends on how heavy you want to get into this stuff. Another thing that kind of threw me for a loop is the Ford Taurus caliper brackets do not mount up to these Fox body brakes, SN95 brake brackets, and the Cobra rotor is too thick to fit in that bracket. So I actually had to take the brackets off the SN95 calipers and use them with the Taurus calipers. So for someone who maybe not have, you know, those SN95 hardware like I did, you're going to have to separately order those SN95 or Cobra brackets that come off the calipers. So again, not a direct bolt on. There is a little bit of work. You know, obviously you pull the diff cover off. Now you got to put new diff fluid in it. You know, this is I don't use a gasket on the rear diff. I use RTV silicone, so you know the car is going to be out for a couple days. You got to clean the surface. You got to let the silicone dry. You know, I would like to give it a couple days and make sure that silicone dries before I put gear oil in it. So if this is something you're trying to do on the side of the road and you daily your Mustang, you know, you might want to do it where you have a weekend where you can kind of have the car apart. Just a couple little things to think about. The total cost was what was it, $840 for the hardware. Again, I didn't have to spend money on the SN95 caliper brackets because I already had them, so that would have been a little bit more. One of the reasons why it was so expensive for me is because I went with the Raybestos Cobra Pads. I'm sure if you just did an Autozone Gold, any kind of basic street pad, that would have been a lot cheaper. The brake pads alone were $250 for me. The foxbodybrakes.com Brake brackets were $250. Again, like I said, you could probably make your own brackets if you wanted to. You could weld up some steel on the original brackets and extend it. You know, there's obviously you can save a little bit of money there. So it is a little more involved than a basic brake upgrade, you know, swap over. So yeah, that was it for rear brakes. Now I'm waiting on a friend, and we'll bleed them and get the car back together and get the diff back together, and we'll be back out. Thanks for watching.